Paul McCartney's public announcement in 1970 confirmed what fans had feared. The Beatles were officially no more. The world's most influential band had dissolved, and the four members, McCartney, John Lennon, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr, would never reunite. Yet, just a year later, something curious happened. While they no longer played together, all four ex-Beatles found themselves sharing space on the Billboard Hot 100. During the week of April 24th, 1971, Harrison's What Is Life, Lennon's Power to the People, and McCartney's Another Day all appeared on the chart. By early May, Harrison's single had dropped off, but Starr's It Don't Come Easy entered, creating an almost ghostly Beatles reunion through their solo hits. For McCartney, Another Day marked his first release after the breakup. Like Eleanor Rigby, it painted a portrait of loneliness and routine, centered on an isolated woman trapped in the dull rhythm of everyday life. Though Linda McCartney received a co-writing credit, the song's roots went back to the Let It Be sessions, when Paul was already experimenting with melodies apart from the group. The track was recorded in 1970 during the Ram sessions, but ultimately left off the album. Reflecting on his early solo style, McCartney once explained that many of those songs leaned on acoustic guitar because he no longer had his former bandmates to help build them up. With the Beatles, he said, songs often began acoustically before evolving into full electric arrangements with Lennon and Harrison. On his own, those songs tended to remain simple and organic, and he admitted that he genuinely enjoyed their unadorned sound. John Lennon, meanwhile, was following a different path. Known as the band's most politically outspoken member, he had already used songs like Revolution to call for social awareness. But by early 1971, his message had grown sharper. After speaking with writers from the radical publication Red Mole, Lennon found himself inspired by their arguments for direct action over peaceful protest. The very next day, he began writing Power to the People, a fiery anthem urging listeners to rise up and demand change. The lyrics echoed his earlier work, channeling the spirit of revolution, but with a more urgent call to the streets. Later in life, however, Lennon admitted that he had come to regret the song. In his book, Skywriting by Word of Mouth, he reflected that spending time with politically extreme circles had made him feel guilty for not being angrier, and that Power to the People was, in hindsight, a reaction written 10 years too late. George Harrison's What Is Life had an entirely different origin. Back in 1969, while still a Beatle, he had been producing an album for his friend Billy Preston titled That's the Way God Planned It. On his drive to Olympic Studios one day, Harrison suddenly came up with a melody that he thought would fit Preston's style perfectly. The song took only about half an hour to write, but once he arrived, he decided it didn't suit the ongoing session's tone. Rather than offering it to the Beatles during the Abbey Road recordings, he saved it for his first solo project, All Things Must Pass. The song became the album's second single, following the global success of My Sweet Lord. Ringo Starr, on the other hand, struck gold with It Don't Come Easy, a song that outperformed both McCartney's and Lennon's singles in sales. Originally titled You Gotta Pay Your Dues, it was recorded in early 1970 with George Martin producing. The session featured Harrison on acoustic guitar, Stephen Stills on piano, and Klaus Voormann on bass. Although the song was officially credited to Starr alone, he later acknowledged how instrumental Harrison had been in shaping it. He admitted that while he was good at crafting a verse and chorus, he often turned to Harrison for help completing songs. Harrison not only finished the lyrics, but also added chord progressions that elevated the track far beyond its original form. Starr joked that his friend's musical input made him sound like a genius, even though he never considered himself much of a guitarist. By the spring of 1971, all four former Beatles were thriving separately, each exploring his own voice, yet still orbiting the same musical universe. Revolver, Let It Be, and the entire Beatles legacy were behind them, but for a fleeting moment on the charts, their individual journeys briefly aligned again, a quiet echo of the greatest band the world had ever known.